So what I'm doing here is I am looking at the various source uh, transfer agreement files. Uh, this one for the Hera College of Hospitality. And I have this template which has a number of settings that allow me to ensure that the most recent version of Word docx file is followed and that I can get around these particular errors. So the smoking gun that there are many things wrong just from the file information is that before Windows even was a thing, for some reason we have files that are dated all 11 p.m. December 31st, 1979. So those have to be all dealt with. So what I'm going to proceed with is making out of a template this, because what we're finding is that if you just merely create a document and you think, okay, I'll just recover because it's safe, do this, that's not going to happen. Um, Open with Word. You want to cover contents, and then you get the style. Okay. And then see, it opens up with a generic name. So this is a rescue file. This is not an actual fix yet. And then in order for me to attempt to do something that is the file in question, I'm going to go and just do this demo. And the reason I'm calling this a demo is because I'm not really actually going to work with this file. It is not what I want. When I close this window and we look at the file that I just created, you'll see that it is suddenly increased 10 times in girth. That is not an optimal file. Yes, it will eventually be able to be edited to a very slim PDF, but this is not for an ongoing document, one that's going to be updated within a year. This is not an optimal way to approach it. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to first create an OAR version that's pristine that I'm going to copy and paste the usable content from. So I'm going to create this, and then I'm going to do underscore OAR so that we'll know that this particular file is set. Next, I'm going to go to the source document, but I'm not going to pick from the file because I have to be able to use certain settings to get to what I want. So I'm going to browse, and the file that I need to open is this. And I have to go down to open and repair. Get past the same error that we saw earlier, but in a different presentation. Again, document one means this is a rescue file that is not meant for actual just saving necessarily. And because I had earlier determined that there is this ghost content that follows the last paragraph, I'm noting that this is revised 8/11/23 because I'll need to do that manually. I'm going to slide up and copy this content. Oops, let me try that again. Probably not a good right click option there. I'm going to do it here to ensure that's there. Now minimize this, come to my empty rename template. I'll do Control V, and I have that content. Now I've already forgotten what that date was there, so I'm not going to be able to proceed until I go back into the other version to see what that date was because I need to manually enter that in. Oh, it's 8/11/23. Okay. Now, there are other settings that need to be done, so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what I'm doing here. Because I want to make sure that the updates will have this heading visibly separated from the tables, which will be remediated by other members of the team as well as me. I'm going to leave that other detail for later. But I will, in terms of the heading 2, modify it before I forget and add a 6-point gap after a heading entry so that that's already going to be in place and make it easier to deal with editing and the separation between headings as well. Another thing that I'm going to do is I need to make sure that there's a heading 3 level, because for navigation, if these items are being treated as headings, then they need to be performing and have the role of headings. So I'm going to first add that corresponding gap below that as well. And then I'm going to make that a heading 3. I'm going to apply that while I'm at it, because I just have a few of these that are in each document. Do those heading 3s. And then there's going to be other bits that need to be addressed. So this video can be an all-in-one for other things that need to be dealt with. While we can certainly go in when we do the accessibility and do the check and deal with the header by using this interface, unfortunately, selecting that does not fix the problems. What we'll have to do each and every time is that we'll actually need to navigate to this, go to the table settings, and per table ensure that that setting is in place. So even though I could go here and fix all of these, doesn't mean that there is a guarantee that when we have the PDF that it's going to absorb that. So you want to make sure that you actually see those settings, and if it doesn't pop the, especially across a page break, the repeat of the header row, then you're not absolutely assured that that's taken care of. There are also items here where probably just to make sure that there's some readability there, I'm going to do our accessible gap carriage return by an enter key. To make a gap is not accessible. Like this right here, not accessible. What should be done is if you want that extra gap, you build it in with the spacing with the paragraph tool. Again, here, deleting that, the equivalent, put that in there. Again, that's how you deal with that. Here, I'm going to make these items here, or this item, program-specific information, international students, transfer policies, probably should be standing out as headings, but the problem is that heading 2 has a shading, and so I'll have to go manually for each of these, apply a heading 2 setup, then manually fix the shading, so those are functional. Move the shading, shrink, bold. I have to put 13 in manually because 13 is not an automatic choice in the drop down. Transfer at, see, that's not a choice, 13. So we do that. And now we have those. The last bit that I'm going to do is see this gap, carriage return by itself on the line, not accessible. Using the layout tool to supply the equivalent space. I'll do that here as well. Oops. And that is what the finished file should look like. So this was done in real time. So we're talking about between 10 and 15 minutes per if somebody is working fairly quickly. But there's a volume of these, so these will take each a finite amount of time. When I close this file and refresh, you'll see that the version I just completed, 5:17 p.m. on Friday, June 7th, instead of being this huge 2.6 meg file, it is a slim 60 kilobyte file. Now, if you're saying, okay, Rex, did you forget something? Yeah. We want to make sure that the logo has been taken care of. And there's a particular weird thing is because why is this in a heading setting? So I'm going to go make it normal. I'm going to center it. And I'm going to right click so I can put in the alt text. And that is an auto-generated one, which is not adequate. We need to say what the text says. I don't think the mortarboard is a necessary part of what we need to have for the experience, but I will say logo just so that they know that that's there. Now I will save this. I will go to save as, and I will, after saving it as the docx file, I will make a PDF of it. I'm going to drag the Adobe file over. I'm going to run my accessibility check. And while I know it's going to do well, there is an issue to deal with that you must deal with manually. So while everything is passed, when we go to reading order, we know by the way the PDF is generated from Word that the image is not in the right location. This should be item 1 or 2. And because of the nature of how an export occurs with an image, there's this extra carriage return, which is an extra item that somebody with certain settings on their screen reader will encounter. I'm going to fix that reading order, and I'm going to delete this particular structure. So now we go straight from logo to all of this text and so on. Now, is this ready to go? This particular one is, because I did all of the steps. I'm going to resave it. And then this file will be transferred to the remediated file, and I will remove OAR from the file name so that if it's ready to proceed, they don't have to later then remove that. We are now at 15 minutes.